They called him guilty. She called him innocent. And what happened next, nobody in that courtroom saw coming. Mr. Green, your client needs you to say something. Silence. Judge Reiner sat still, his right brow twitching just a bit, but that was enough to show he was annoyed. The courtroom was packed, row after row of reporters, gawkers, and rubberneckers, hoping to see a young millionaire either squirm or somehow talk his way out of trouble. But defense attorney Monroe Green just shook his head, gently closed his briefcase, and said in a cold voice, "I am withdrawing from representation, Your Honor." Effective immediately. A wave of gasps rolled through the courtroom. Some people stood up to whisper, others scrambled to tweet. But one person, one very small person, sat completely still. 8-year-old Amara Johnson, with beads in her hair and a borrowed dress that didn't quite fit, was in the third row behind the defense table. No one had noticed her when they came in. No one cared who she was. Not yet. Ethan Brixley sat stunned at the table, staring at his now empty chair, mouth dry. He was only 26, a tech founder from Santa Clarita who'd built an app that helped people find safe jobs during the pandemic. Just last year, Forbes had called him the people's billionaire. Now he was in handcuffs, accused of a crime so cruel that even strangers wanted to see him fall. But he hadn't done it. He knew that. God knew that. The judge banged his gavel once. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Green. I understand, Your Honor, but I have no further comment. I can't stand behind a client who won't be honest with me." Another blow to Ethan's gut. It didn't matter if he had been honest. Everyone was assuming he wasn't. Then came a voice, small, clear, from the middle of the courtroom. "I can defend him." The room froze. The judge leaned forward, confused. "Excuse me." Amara stood up. Her voice wavered, but she didn't sit back down. "I said, I can defend him." Laughter. One man let out a chuckle, then stifled it. Someone near the front pulled out their phone and started filming. The bailiff stepped forward, unsure if this was some prank. "Little girl, what is your name?" the judge asked. "Amara Johnson." "And how old are you, Miss Johnson?" 8. The judge blinked. "I understand I'm not a real lawyer," she added quickly, "but I read about this case, and I know he didn't do it." "I know." Everyone expected someone to escort her out, but Judge Reiner didn't, not yet. He looked at her with something between curiosity and pity. "And how would you know that, Miss Johnson?" "Because he saved my brother's life 2 years ago." Now it was Ethan who turned slowly in his chair, his eyes locked on hers. He remembered her, but he didn't remember saving anyone. And that's when the courtroom started paying attention. Reporters sat up straighter. Phones were lowered. Amara didn't back down. Her small hands gripped the wood of the bench in front of her, knuckles white. "I watched the videos. I read everything. People say he was at that warehouse, but he wasn't. He couldn't have been." The prosecutor scoffed. "Your Honor, this is a child." "Let her speak," the judge interrupted. Gasps again. No one saw that coming. Amara stepped out of the row and walked toward the front like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Her voice cracked a little, but she never stopped. "I know you think I'm just some kid, but my brother looked up to him. He was a part of the mentor program Ethan funded. We didn't have nothing. We didn't even have Wi-Fi, but Ethan gave every kid in our building tablets and internet. My brother was going to go to college because of him. But he died last year." Silence hit like a punch. "I want to speak for Ethan," she said. "Because nobody else will. And if that's not allowed, then maybe this court don't care about the truth." The judge sat back in his chair. Ethan was frozen, eyes locked on the girl. The bailiff wasn't sure what to do, and the cameras kept rolling. In just 3 minutes, the trial everyone thought they understood had completely changed. But what no one knew yet was that this little girl and this young millionaire were connected in a way even they hadn't figured out. They didn't throw her out of the courtroom. That surprised everyone. Judge Reiner let Amara sit on a bench near the front while the bailiff whispered frantically to the clerk. Meanwhile, the entire internet was watching a shaky live stream from someone's phone. A kid just stood up in court and said she'd defend a millionaire. That was clickbait gold, and it was everywhere. Ethan sat in silence, his wrists cuffed, eyes on the little girl who had just done something even his lawyer wouldn't. He wanted to thank her, but what could he even say? She didn't even know him, did she? Court will recess for 20 minutes, Judge Reiner said finally. His voice was firm, but there was curiosity under it now. And someone please get this child a guardian or parent before I violate a dozen laws. The gavel came down and people started buzzing with questions as they filed out. But Amara didn't move. She just sat there staring at Ethan like she was trying to read his soul. 2 hours earlier, Amara's morning had started like every other. The one-bedroom apartment smelled like yesterday's fried chicken, and the TV was playing a rerun of a game show her grandmother loved. Grandma Joyce was asleep on the couch, oxygen tube in her nose, soft snores filling the air. Amara tiptoed around her. She had school in an hour, but she'd already decided she wasn't going. Not today. Today was important. She slipped on her faded denim jacket, grabbed the worn-out backpack she kept for show, because inside wasn't homework or pencils. It was a spiral notebook stuffed with every article she'd printed out about Ethan Brixley. She'd spent weeks reading about him in the library, not because she had to, because she wanted to. Everyone else saw a rich guy who messed up. She saw the man who'd changed her brother Malik's life, at least for a little while. Malik was 17 when he joined that coding mentorship program. It gave him hope, a laptop, and a shot at something bigger than their block in East Street. Lewis. But then Malik was gone. A shooting outside a corner store took him away before he could even finish the program. Amara didn't blame Ethan for that. How could she? If anything, she felt like he was the only person who'd ever cared about kids like Malik. And now everyone wanted him in prison for something she knew he didn't do. How do you know, Amara? People asked when she mentioned it at school. She never answered, but deep down she believed it. She believed in him more than anyone else believed in her. So she skipped school, walked to the courthouse, and sat in that gallery for hours just to see for herself. And when that lawyer gave up on him, something broke inside her. If nobody else was going to fight for him, then she would. Back in the courthouse hallway, chaos exploded. Reporters swarmed anyone who looked like they might know the kid. Amara kept her head down as a court officer led her into a small waiting room. "Sweetheart, who's your parent or guardian?" the woman asked gently. "My grandma. She's at home. You got a phone number for her?" Amara nodded, scribbled it on a scrap of paper, but when the officer called, there was no answer. Grandma Joyce slept hard when she was tired. Amara sat there, legs swinging, until the door creaked open. And there he was, Ethan, still cuffed, escorted by 2 deputies, but looking straight at her. "You," he said softly, like he couldn't believe she was real. "Why would you do that?" Amara looked up at him and shrugged. "Because you didn't do it." Ethan blinked. "You don't even know me." "Yes, I do," she said simply. "You helped my brother." The deputies exchanged looks. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. "Amara." "I'm sorry about your brother," Ethan whispered. "I didn't know." She nodded like she expected that. "You gave him something nobody else would. That means something." Before he could answer, the deputies pulled him back toward a side door. He looked like he wanted to say more, but couldn't. Amara sat there gripping her notebook, heart pounding. If the judge let her talk, she was ready. She'd memorized everything, every date, every detail. She was going to make them listen. But what she didn't know was that stepping up for Ethan would put her right in the middle of a storm bigger than she could imagine. Before the handcuffs, before the courtroom, Ethan Brixley had everything. He wasn't born rich, far from it. He grew up in Bakersfield, California, the son of a single mom who worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. When he was 15, he fixed a broken laptop someone was throwing away. That old laptop started it all. By 19, he'd launched his first app from a dorm room in Fresno. By 24, he was a millionaire. By 26, the word billionaire floated around in headlines like a badge of honor he never asked for. They called him a prodigy. The media loved him. Investors wanted a piece of him. His company, Linkbridge, wasn't just an app, it was a lifeline. It connected underprivileged kids to internships, scholarships, and mentorships across the country. During the pandemic, when jobs vanished and schools closed, Linkbridge kept kids learning, kept food on tables. But good headlines never last. 3 months ago, everything turned upside down. A fire broke out in an abandoned warehouse in St. Louis. Inside, Police found a man badly beaten, barely alive. That man was Victor Hale, a corporate rival Ethan had publicly clashed with over intellectual property. On the same night, an eyewitness swore they saw Ethan near that warehouse. The story spread like wildfire. Young billionaire attacks rival in shady dispute. Ethan denied it. I wasn't even in St. Louis that night, he told everyone. But his phone pinged near the city limits. His rental car was caught on a traffic cam. And then the worst part. When they raided his office, they found cash hidden in a safe. Thousands, something that didn't look right for a man who had everything digital. The press tore him apart. Sponsors bailed. Investors cut ties. People who once shook his hand now acted like they never knew him. And then came the indictment. Attempted murder, conspiracy, aggravated assault. Ethan knew the truth. He didn't touch Victor Hale. He didn't even know how the man ended up in that warehouse. But the evidence painted him guilty in neon, and the more he protested, the more everyone believed he was lying. The only person left in his corner was his lawyer, Monroe Green. Until this morning, the 20-minute recess stretched into an hour. Ethan sat in a holding room, staring at the white cinder block wall. He didn't pray much, but today he prayed someone, anyone, would believe him. The door opened. A deputy walked in. "You've got 5 minutes." Ethan looked up and saw her again. Amara, small frame, big eyes, notebook clutched to her chest like armor. "How did you even get in here?" he asked. The deputy shrugged. "Judge said, let her talk." Ethan almost laughed. "This is insane." Amara stepped closer. "Why'd your lawyer quit?" Ethan sighed. "Because I wouldn't lie. He wanted me to say I was there, but didn't do it. I told him I wasn't there at all." "Were you?" "No." His voice was sharp, defensive, then softer. "I wasn't." Amara studied him like she was checking his homework. "Then why'd they say your phone was in St. Louis?" "I don't know." He rubbed his wrists against the cuffs. "I think someone set me up." "Who?" "I wish I knew." Amara flipped open her notebook. It was full of handwritten notes, printed articles, and scribbles in blue ink. "I've been reading everything about you. You gave out laptops. You paid for summer camps. You sent kids to college. Yeah, so you don't sound like somebody who'd beat a man almost to death." Ethan smirked bitterly. "Tell that to the world." "I will," she said firmly. He blinked. "You really think anyone's going to listen to you?" "They better," she shot back. "'Cause I ain't lying." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt something he thought he'd lost completely: hope. It was ridiculous, a billionaire finding hope in an 8-year-old with braids and a stubborn streak. But there it was. Before the deputy could escort him out, Ethan leaned forward. "Amara, why are you doing this?" "Really?" She looked him dead in the eye. "'Cause nobody believed my brother either." Ethan froze. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. "When Malik died, they said he was just another gang kid, but he wasn't. He wanted to build apps. He wanted to work for you one day. And nobody cared. Not the cops, not the news. Nobody told his story right. So I'm telling yours." The deputy tapped his watch. "Time's up." As they led Ethan away, his throat tightened. He didn't know if Amara could actually help him, but for the first time in months, someone saw him as more than a headline. But what neither of them knew yet was that the truth about the warehouse was far uglier than either of them imagined. The courtroom buzzed louder when the judge returned. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Cameras were still rolling. Social media was eating this up. Hashtags trended. Hashtag kid lawyer. Hashtag free Ethan. And who is Amara? Amara sat up straight when the judge called the session back to order. Her feet barely touched the floor, but her eyes didn't waver. She was ready. "Miss Johnson," Judge Reiner began, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you are not licensed to represent anyone in this court." "I know, sir," Amara said quickly. "I'm not trying to be a lawyer. I just need you to hear me out. Please." The judge stared at her for a long moment. "1 minute," he said finally. "Make it count." Reporters leaned forward like the Super Bowl was about to start. Amara clutched her notebook and stepped up to the center of the courtroom. Her voice shook at first, but then it steadied. "Everybody thinks he did it because of some video and a phone ping, but I read all the news. It don't make sense. They said Mr. Brixley was in St. Lewis the night Victor Hale got hurt. But his flight records show he left LA at 7 p.m. and didn't land in Missouri until after midnight, and that warehouse is on the other side of the city. That's hours away. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Even Ethan turned to look at her, surprised. I know people say kids don't understand grown-up stuff, Amara continued, but math is math. He couldn't have been in both places. Somebody lied, and whoever lied is trying real hard to make y'all hate him. The prosecutor shot up. Objection. Sit down, the judge snapped. You'll get your turn. Amara flipped the page. And another thing, why would he do it? What's he got to gain from beating some guy in a warehouse? Nothing. But Mr. Hale, he had a reason to hurt himself, or to make it look like somebody else did. I saw that article where Hale's company was about to lose a huge deal to Linkbridge. If Brixley went to jail, guess who gets the deal back? The whole room buzzed. The prosecutor tried to speak again, but the judge slammed his gavel. Enough, Judge Reiner said. Miss Johnson, your time is up. Amara bit her lip and nodded. Thank you for listening. As she walked back to her seat, the judge glanced at Ethan. For the first time all day, his face softened just a little. The recess turned into a scheduling break. Court would reconvene tomorrow. Reporters sprinted out like they were running the Kentucky Derby, hungry for interviews. But Ethan didn't care about them. He only cared about the little girl now sitting quietly, hugging her notebook like it held the world. Outside the courthouse, the sky turned a pale orange. The steps overflowed with news crews, flashing cameras, and people shouting questions. In the middle of it, Amara stood alone, scanning the crowd. She knew her grandma was probably worried sick, but she didn't have a phone. Then a voice called her name. Amara. She turned and saw a woman running toward her, tall, tired eyes, hair pulled into a scarf. Grandma Joyce, out of breath, but moving fast for someone with bad knees. Girl, what on earth? Joyce grabbed her by the shoulders, looking her over. You got the whole city talking about you. I had to, Grandma, Amara said softly. Nobody else was going to help him. Joyce sighed, rubbing her forehead. Baby, you can't just stand up in court like you're Perry Mason. He didn't do it, Amara insisted. Joyce opened her mouth to argue, then shut it. Deep down, she knew that stubborn look. Amara got it from her mama. A man in a gray suit approached holding a mic. Amara. Joyce. Channel 5 News. Can we get a comment? Joyce stepped in front of her. Not today. She grabbed Amara's hand and pulled her down the steps. They didn't notice the black SUV parked across the street. Inside, a man watched them through tinted glass, his face hidden under a cap. His phone buzzed. He answered with one word. Problem. That night, Amara sat on the edge of her bed, watching her grandma pace. The apartment felt even smaller with all the noise coming from the TV, every channel replaying her courtroom speech like it was a movie trailer. Joyce stopped pacing and sat beside her. Baby, why does this matter so much to you? Really? Amara stared at the peeling paint on the wall. Because he cared about us, about Malik. Nobody else did. Joyce softened. You think helping this man is going to bring Malik back? No, Amara whispered. But maybe it means he didn't die for nothing. Joyce sighed and hugged her. For the first time all day, Amara let the tears come. Across town, Ethan lay in a jail cell, staring at the ceiling. Amara's words replayed in his mind like a broken record. Somebody lied. He believed her. But who? His thoughts were cut short when a guard appeared at the bars. You got a visitor. Ethan frowned. At this hour, he sat up. The guard unlocked the door, and when Ethan walked into the visitor room, his blood ran cold. Sitting there waiting for him was a face he thought he'd never see again. But what this man was about to say would turn everything upside down. Ethan froze at the sight of the man in the visitor room. Trevor, he whispered. Trevor Maddox, the guy who'd been his best friend since college, his first business partner before cash and ambition tore them apart. They hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. Trevor leaned back in his chair, calm, smug even. You look like hell, E. Ethan sat down slowly, chains clinking. What are you doing here? Checking on an old friend. Trevor smiled without warmth. Or what's left of him. Ethan clenched his jaw. You set me up. Trevor chuckled. Relax, detective. I didn't beat Hale. I'm not that sloppy. But you wanted me to take the fall. Wanted. Trevor tilted his head. Still do. Ethan's stomach dropped. Why, Trevor, I gave you everything. I pulled you into Linkbridge when nobody else believed in us. You pulled me in, Trevor said, his voice turning sharp, and then you pushed me out. You thought you were better than me. So I found someone who thought I was worth more. Ethan stared at him. Hail. Bingo. Trevor leaned forward, eyes cold. He wanted you gone. I wanted payback. Win-win. Ethan felt his pulse in his ears. You framed me. You used my phone. Cloned your SIM. Easy. The rental car, that was a gift from me to you. Trevor grinned. You should have seen your face when the cops showed up. Priceless. You think you'll get away with this? Trevor shrugged. Who's going to believe you? The world loves a fall from grace. You're not a hero anymore, Ethan. You're a headline, and tomorrow you'll be a conviction. Ethan's hands shook under the table. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know it wasn't luck that took you down. It was me. Trevor stood up, buttoning his jacket. Enjoy your last night as a free man. The guard came in to escort Ethan out. He didn't fight. He couldn't. The betrayal sat like a brick in his chest. Across town, Amara sat in the living room while her grandma dozed in the recliner. The news replayed her clip for the 10th time, her name scrolling across the screen with headlines like, 8-year-old defends billionaire. She should have been proud. Instead, she felt restless. Something was missing. Amara opened her notebook, scanning every detail she'd written about the case. Flight times, traffic cams, the warehouse. Then her eyes landed on a single name, Trevor Maddox. She remembered it from an old article about Linkbridge's early days. She grabbed her pencil and started circling things. Trevor had been there at the start. He'd vanished after some lawsuit. And then nothing, until now. Grandma, Amara whispered, nudging Joyce awake. We got to go back tomorrow, early. Joyce groaned. Lord, child, you trying to give me a heart attack? I think I know who set him up. Joyce stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Amara, I'm serious, Grandma. If I'm right, this ain't just about Ethan. It's about people who think they can do whatever they want and nobody's going to stop them. The next morning, court was chaos. Reporters packed the steps like sardines. Protesters shouted on both sides, some holding, "Free Ethan," signs, others yelling, "Lock him up." Inside, Ethan shuffled in with dark circles under his eyes. He barely noticed the cameras anymore. All he could think about was Trevor's smirk. Then he saw Amara in the front row. She gave him a tiny nod, like, "Don't give up yet." The hearing started. The prosecutor stood smug and ready to close the coffin. Your Honor, he said. The evidence is clear. Phone records placed the defendant near the scene. His financial motive. Objection. Every head turned. It wasn't a lawyer. It was Amara again. Judge Reiner slammed the gavel. Miss Johnson, just let me show you one thing, she pleaded, waving her notebook. One thing, and if I'm wrong, I'll sit down and never talk again. The courtroom buzzed like a beehive. Cameras zoomed in. The judge pinched the bridge of his nose. 30 seconds. Amara sprinted to the front, notebook in hand. She flipped to a page and slapped it on the desk. This, she said, pointing to a printout, is an email from Linkbridge's public folder. It's old, but look, Trevor Maddox's name. He was the co-founder. Everybody forgot about him. But guess what? He's been meeting with Victor Hales. Lawyers, last week. The prosecutor scoffed. That proves nothing. Then why? Amara said loudly. Did Trevor buy a plane ticket to St. Louis the same day Mr. Hale got hurt? Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Ethan stared at her, stunned. How did she even find that? Judge Reiner leaned forward. Is this true, counselor? The prosecutor stammered. I'm not aware. Then you better get aware, the judge barked. Court will recess for 2 hours while I review this. Gavel down. Chaos erupted. As deputies led Ethan out, he locked eyes with Amara. For the first time in days, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he had a shot. But nobody realized Trevor Maddox wasn't done yet, and the next move he made could cost someone their life. 2 hours later, the courtroom felt like a pressure cooker. Reporters whispered. Cameras rolled. Social media exploded with theories. Who is Trevor Maddox? Did the kid just crack the case? When the judge returned, the air was so tight you could almost hear hearts pounding. After reviewing the evidence presented, Judge Reiner said, "This court has serious concerns about the integrity of the state's case." He adjusted his glasses, eyes cutting toward the prosecutor. "And even more concerns about the thoroughness of this investigation." The prosecutor's face turned red. "Therefore," the judge continued, "I am ordering the immediate release of Mr. Brixley on bond. Furthermore, the court is requesting a formal inquiry into the actions of one Trevor Maddox." The room exploded. People jumped to their feet. Reporters scrambled like a tidal wave of flashing lights. Ethan sat frozen for a second, then exhaled a breath he didn't know he was holding. The deputies removed his cuffs. For the first time in weeks, his wrists were free. He turned, and there she was, Amara, standing on the bench to see over the crowd, grinning so wide her cheeks hurt. He walked straight to her. The cameras loved it, but Ethan didn't care. He knelt down, eye level with her, voice breaking as he said, "You saved me." Amara shook her head. "Nah, you saved Malik. I just finished the job." He smiled, tears stinging his eyes. "Your brother would be proud." Her smile wavered. "I hope so." Joyce walked over, shaking her head, but smiling too. "You sure know how to stir a pot, little girl." Amara giggled. "Guess it runs in the family." Outside, the chaos didn't stop. Reporters shouted questions. People shoved mics in their faces, but Ethan put his arm gently around Amara's shoulders as security guided them to a car. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said quietly as they walked. "Yeah, why didn't you give up, even when everybody said I was guilty?" Amara thought about it for a second. Then she looked up at him and said the words that would end up on a million news clips that night. "Because when the world calls you a liar, somebody's got to remember the truth. And sometimes that somebody is a kid." Ethan smiled. For the first time in a long time, he felt human again. Not a headline, not a scandal, just a man who got a second chance. A week later, Trevor Maddox was in handcuffs. Evidence linked him to Hale, the warehouse, and the setup. The headlines flipped overnight, from "billionaire" to "victim," the truth behind the frame-up. Linkbridge's stock soared, but Ethan didn't care about that. What mattered was sitting at a small kitchen table in East Street. Lewis, sharing fried chicken with a little girl and her grandmother. "You know," Ethan said between bites, "you'd make one heck of a lawyer someday." Amara grinned. "You think so? I know so." She smiled, eyes bright. "Then you better keep out of trouble, Mr. Brixley, 'cause next time I'm charging you." They all laughed, the kind of laugh that feels like a full breath after drowning. And here's the thing. This wasn't just about a billionaire and a kid. It was about loyalty, about speaking up when no one else will, about believing in someone even when the world says don't. So if you take anything from this story, let it be this: don't underestimate the power of your voice. Even the smallest voice can echo loud enough to change a life. And if you're watching this right now, here's one question for you. If you saw someone about to lose everything because no one believed them, would you stand up and say, "I can defend him"?